Ever since it was announced, the fact that Persona 5 Strikers is an action collaboration between Atlus's P Studio and Koei Tecmo's Omega Force had people quickly drawing comparisons to Omega's Dynasty Warriors series, a comparison that could be forgiven as this was originally the kind of game this Persona was planned to be. When I tried the demo and covered it last year though, it seemed obvious that this game is so much more, and after finishing it, I'd say it's definitely true, with the action combat putting a fast-paced spin on the mechanics we know and love from Persona, but the story and everything else serving as a true sequel to Persona 5, with many mechanics like creating personas, bonds affecting how you get stronger, and the new story itself keeping the spirit of Persona throughout that makes this a Persona game that will easily appeal to fans looking to spend more time with its wonderful cast. It's an exciting and quicker-paced adventure that managed to steal my heart again in its 50 hours, that takes the once Tokyo-based world of Persona 5 and expands it to make a story with a lot of impact, and this unique twist on 5's gameplay mixed with everything else ends up feeling much more like a sequel than a spin-off, and is the continuation of 5 the fans of the original won't want to miss. After another stylish opening, the story begins 6 months after the story of the original Persona 5 ends, with Joker and Morgana heading back to Tokyo to spend summer with the main gang, which as usual doesn't quite go to plan. The police are in the midst of investigating cases of individuals suddenly changing, not unlike how they would after a change of heart, which naturally places suspicion onto the Phantom Thieves, and with Joker as their leader, this doesn't put him in a great position as he arrives into Tokyo. After catching up a little, this series of strange events continues with the Phantom Thieves finding themselves pulled into the metaverse again thanks to a mysterious smartphone app, with this sudden journey leading them to meet an AI called Sophia who can summon her own form of persona, and together they discover that the metaverse is now housing large dungeons called jails that may have something to do with all the strange occurrences happening throughout Japan. Wanting to get to the bottom of this, and with a little pressure from a detective called Zenkichi, it's time for the Phantom Thieves to journey throughout Japan to find these jails and the people manipulating them to steal people's desires, and this story sets the stage for both an exciting and fun adventure as the group spends summer together doing what they do best in new places, both as friends and as the Phantom Thieves once again. One thing the Persona team expressed before this game was released was that they wanted this story to be a way to allow the Phantom Thieves to have fun and be rewarded for their hard work in the first game. And while this game can get pretty serious as each arc plays out, this journey around Japan also delivers a more light-hearted tone as well, with plenty of fun moments of banter to be found both in the main story and when you talk to characters on the map as the story progresses. And with the whole group together from the start, it gives that much-needed time to appreciate how the characters interact both as a group of friends and also as Phantom Thieves in their completed form, as opposed to watching them come together like they did in the first game. New additions like Sophia also managed to slot into this group perfectly, adding her own fun moments and unique personality as a curious AI that makes her easy to love while also adding a new mystery to watch slowly unfold. She also has an interesting perspective in the story as someone who is essentially growing based on what happens, and by the end, her development made her easily one of my favorite characters in this new Persona story. Detective Zenkichi Hasegawa also ends up being a good addition to the cast as someone who provides an older pair of eyes to see the Phantom Thieves from, and in true Persona style, I was impressed to see how these characters were so successfully fleshed out again that it's one of the reasons I find myself always coming back to this series, and is the reason why I wanted to talk to these characters as much as possible as I was playing, as every little bit of side information was something I wanted to know about and made the main story feel even more fulfilling. This character development is supported through side content as well. While not as deep as the Confidant system in Persona 5, there's a quest system that chapter by chapter gives a set of quests that have you exploring these unique areas of Japan, usually to find something for a certain character, and by the end of them you usually receive a special item, some bomb points, and a series of dialogue moments that were often the highlight of the area I visited, and it's thanks to this I did all the quests I could, maybe up until the second last dungeon, as the little dialogues or descriptions always added something fun to build on the dynamic between these characters. Enriching the world and story even further are all the little shops and things you can do in these smaller versions of Japanese cities that do a great job of giving a nod to the things you would generally do when visiting each one, with places I've been to like Sendai giving plenty of nods to foods like Zunda and Gyutan, and places like the Date statue that most people would see if they visited that help add to the essence of each place, and combined with everything else made me appreciate these areas I already wanted to visit even more while creating a nice feeling of traveling with friends that made it a lot of fun to playthrough. Throw in a few other smaller mechanics like recipes, and a lot of the items you use in battles being a reminder of the places you've been, and this shorter Persona game does well at creating a rich world that gives a look at some famous places in Japan while telling a new story. And exploring these areas always felt fulfilling as I learned more about this interesting cast and this road trip to remember. When you're not exploring real-world Japan, you're usually exploring a jail, and this is where Omega Force's Musou influence comes fully into play, with the original turn-based system replaced by a responsive active one that makes strategy and timing equally important in this new Persona experience. Enemies aren't waiting for you to take your turn in this Persona, with each enemy ready to ruthlessly attack you any second you're standing still, so Personas, combos, dodging, and quick button presses become key to winning in this new system. And combined with the same principles of exploiting weaknesses, triggering one more showtimes, and all-out attacks, they're mixed with many Persona staples that makes this system feel like a marriage of the two styles of gameplay rather than just being a Persona game or a Warriors one. I had a little bit of a learning curve with this system when I started, as I found myself gravitating to the parts of battle that allowed me to slow down the pace, much closer to how you would usually play Persona. And this worked until around the first boss, where I found out that SP can run out really quickly if you do that. You can keep healing SP to keep doing this, or do the opposite and try power through by using just the action mechanics that can give you free hits with your Persona, but it was only when I started using a combination of the two that not only did I get better at the system, but it actually became more fun, as watching what was happening on screen and switching characters and tactics accordingly was incredibly engaging, as it means you're always thinking about what to do and how to avoid that next big attack. After so many fun boss battles with this system and needing to really make sure I had the right characters with me to be able to take down bosses, I may even prefer this system in some ways, as it was a nice contrast to the slower storytelling, but still kept the core things I like flashy attacks and exploiting weaknesses that keep it feeling very Persona. I wouldn't necessarily recommend replacing the turn-based system with this one, but I think this is a good example of a game that benefits from a faster paced contrast to its main story, and if it was in the main series or in a future Strikers game, I would happily play more with this system again, as I'm really impressed with how fluid it felt to play with and how much I enjoyed striking things down in this new way. And since it wouldn't be a Persona game without the Personas, while that system is closer to how people would remember it, it was nice to play with here too, and I'm glad to see it in this game in all its glory with its multiple Persona fusion accidents, and registering Personas, with a few prompts added in to make sure you're not forgetting to register your Personas being a nice touch that makes this system feel as refined as it should in a sequel. All of this coupled in with a few new features like being able to level up your Personas keeps this game feeling like a Persona in spite of its new combat, complete with other Persona staples like the gorgeous UIs that lay out your Persona's elements well, to the pumping rock remix of the original soundtrack, along with some great new songs that makes everything old and new come together to create this great game of its own. And the fact that it managed to bring such a new system to this game and make it fit in with everything else is a real feat that created the kind of enjoyable action Persona experience that I never thought could exist, but I'm so happy was this fun to play with. This is usually the point in the review where I talk about replayability, however I don't have that much to say in terms of that for Strikers. It's not that there isn't much to do, as there are post-game quests, new game plus, and getting the best equipment to do now that I'm finished, but I did over 50 quests in my main playthrough that left me feeling pretty satisfied and means I don't have much desire to go back at this point, unless I have a bad day at work and need to unleash some fists of justice. But I've already seen all the character events I wanted and showed off my Persona making skills to the Velvet Room plenty of times, so I feel good about how much I've played. But if you don't do all these things during your main playthrough, you'll have much more left to do than I do, so the replayability mostly depends how much you play the first time. I guess this is something that differentiates Strikers from a core Persona game. Usually at this point I'd have social mechanics I'd want to try different things with, tests to get a better score on, and a bunch of Personas to create to fill my compendium with. And while I definitely still have that last one, the traveling nature of this Persona means the characters aren't in these places long enough to get invested in the kind of mini games we'd usually see. But it's also something that makes this a more digestible Persona, as it's half the length, so it depends what you play Persona for that will determine how satisfied you are with this one. As someone who enjoys the main story most and its characters, even though there was less individual character development outside of the main story, I feel like I got what I wanted out of the experience, and with it looking gorgeous on PS4, I got to look at the stylish visuals I love from these games too, although I will put footage up from the Switch version I tried in case anyone wants to compare, but I was happy to play the PS4 version for that little bit of extra sharpness that kept the visuals looking exactly how I'd expect, with the added bonus of being 60 frames per second that made its battles feel extra snappy. While it does have its differences from the first one as a different kind of sequel, all in all, I'd say I'm personally happy with the experience, even though I can understand if there are people who will miss certain aspects from the original, so definitely consider your own preferences if you plan to pick this up. But for me, I was just happy for an excuse to spend more time with my favorite Persona cast, and the fast-paced battles and exploration of Japan were a great bonus that made it feel extra special and made me happy that this unique sequel exists. If you're in Persona for the story, fun battles, and the way it brings Japan to life, Persona 5 Strikers is very much a Persona experience, and it's thanks to these things that Strikers felt like a great continuation to the original, with the way it brought these characters to life again in a light-hearted but action-packed Persona that was a lot of fun to play with. It still has plenty of depth in both its story and new combat style, with the quick action surprising me with just how good it made striking down enemies feel with its combination of battles that kept me on my toes in terms of dishing out damage and dodging attacks, all mixed with Persona's usual style that makes this new system look just as cool as the original. The mix of old and new mechanics and characters with plenty of depth in both story and side content makes for a rich journey for those willing to dive in, and while it doesn't have the insane amount of content the original does, its 50-hour playtime keeps everything flowing at a good pace that makes it more digestible, and as a sequel to an already massive game, I can appreciate this being another slightly smaller slice to the story to continue things for those who want more. So if you're looking for something with the essence of Persona brought back to life in a new way, I'd absolutely recommend Strikers if you want to see this group of friends on a new adventure. And as a big fan of these characters that was surprised how fun this new take on Persona's combat ended up being, I'd consider this collaboration between two teams a successful marriage of systems that created a worthwhile sequel to a great game. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you played Persona 5 Strikers, and if you have, what did you think of it? You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below, and until next time, thank you, bye!